Hey Peyton, nice to see you again on this beautiful day. And this time we have a quote from the technologist and writer Kevin Kelly, where he says, "At the center of every significant change in our lives today is a technology of some sort. Technology is humanity's accelerant. Because of technology, everything we make is always in the process of becoming. Every kind of thing is becoming something else, while it churns from might to is. All is flux. Nothing is finished. Nothing is done. This never-ending change is the pivotal axis of the modern world." What does that spark in your ideas, in your world of ideas, Peyton?
Great to be back with you, my friend. What a great quote. And I obviously see this all around. I think we all do. Technology is such a powerful force, such a powerful force of disruption, of change. And I think at this point, it's almost impossible to cling on to the illusion of stasis. I think it's almost impossible to look around at our life, at our job, at our week, at our work, at our way of being, at our lifestyle, at our communities, and say, this is going to be the same in 10 years as it was today. It's almost impossible. Things are so swept up in this constantly shifting tidal wave of moving forces, change, in this becoming. And the accelerant factor is hard to overstate at this point. I think back in 2016, it was accelerating, and now it's really accelerating. It's so fast, it's almost a whirlwind to think about how much 2025 has evolved since 2020. Like just in the last 5 years, with the absolute bewildering pace of technological change is insane. And I know that in 5 more years, it's going to be even more insane. And looking around at what has been introduced today in the world, speaking of AI that is already in all of our hands, and also speaking of robotics, which is not at the point of mass production yet, but is already there, already invented, already created, already can be watched, and we can check this robot doing somebody's laundry today. We can check this other robot doing a backflip, and we can check this other robot that is capable of putting things together that used to require human dexterity or flexibility or task switching. And we can see that, holy crap, this sweeping force of acceleration of technology is still gaining steam. It's not slowing down, it's speeding up. And so this nature of becoming, this nature of this technological driving force of shifts and of differences and of changes in pace and of changes in method and of changes of how things look and how things feel and how things seem, and the once again the pace and the speed of all these things. We cannot deny it. It's a driving force that shapes our lives. This is nothing like 500 years ago when I was born, and I can expect to live a very similar life to how my parents lived. And I can actually go to my grandparents and they can tell me about what I should expect in 5 years when I'm at that stage of my life. And then I can read a book, and that book will tell me pretty much what it is like to be in the final years of my life, how it will look and feel and taste in my lifestyle, and how I might prepare for it and what I might think about it and how I might have intentions of what I will do based off of a very predictable setting and a very predictable set of things that I'm going to need and ways that I will achieve them. It's totally different. We are in a very unique time, and there's no playbook. There's no roadmap. The signpost pointing into the future quickly reaches this thick wall of opaque fog that is mere feet in front of our face. We cannot see very far at all, let alone in 10 years, let alone in 50 years. I can't even imagine. And so this becomingness, this dynamism is undeniable in our lives, and it's fundamentally different than at any other point in human history, or at least it's of a different magnitude than it's ever been in human history. How do you think about this technology as being the center of all of this change, this feeling of everything is different, everything is shifting, everything is moving? What is your understanding of this force in the world and in our lives?
Well, it is becoming, it's always like changing from the state it was yesterday and into the new state of slight enhancement. And sometimes it's stepwise enhancement. And this is why it's so hard to recognize. Actually, because it's like a shifting baseline. We get used to the improvement of the technology bit by bit. We get used to it and don't recognize the shift it made from now to 10 years ago, for example, or from now to 500 years ago, because, yeah, we are in our own world and we only have like this kind of memory, sweeping memory, and it comes with us. And technology is like at the center of the becoming because it enhances our lives. It improves everything we do to improve our lives and how we live. Imagine now you can just press a button on a screen of glass and you manipulate a whole logistics chain of things and people and the workflow of people. And the baker will put a pizza in the oven, and then a guy with a motorcycle will get noticed, and then will drive to the baker, and then will drive to you. The chain of effects you can set off just through a click of a virtual button is immense. So this kind of invisibility and usability of the technology, the stuff which happens in the background we don't even see and we don't even need to be aware of, but it works. This just amazes me. It is like a constant improvement as well. And then there are paradigm shifts. It is not only software anymore. Now it's AI, which can bring order into chaotic information, and then it can interpret and act on itself now. And then you can just say with your own natural language, please order a pizza. And then it will select the pizza. It will press the button for you, charge the credit card for you because you attached it to the system, to your own representative agent. And then you can just have a much higher potential of manipulating the way the world works so that life becomes more convenient for you. You can order something on Amazon and then you have the same day delivery sometimes. And then this is just pure wealth that no king 500 years ago ever had or ever could expect, to have this level of wealth that we can access today. And then people oftentimes do not see that this is actually much better standard of living than 20 years ago when this stuff all started. And the gradual improvement just happened to be better than yesterday, and every day becomes better than yesterday. And as you said, it is accelerating as well. And we can expect 10x improvements sometimes tomorrow from what the state of the art was yesterday. And this is what bears a lot of potential, potential upsides, but also some downsides we have to be aware of. And Peyton, what is the upsides you look forward to be in connection with most you see from this technological change and becoming?
The upsides are so exciting, honestly. And I'm keen to talk about the upsides and downsides in our own subjective experience in depth. But speaking of the external upsides, it's insane. Genuinely, we are looking at, as Dario said, a country full of geniuses in a data center. Like, imagine the effect if we had 100,000 elite level scientists in labs 5 years ago, and they were making X amount of progress and new discoveries per year. How many more discoveries would we make if we had 1,000 times more elite scientists? Just run the experiment in our mind. Out of every scientist that spends 50 years developing specific knowledge, running experiments, testing hypotheses, trying to push knowledge forward, what if, as a species, we had 1,000 times more scientists? Would we make the same amount of progress? Would it move the same amount as before? Or would it move a lot faster? And then look at what scientists did in the last 100 years before AI came around. Look at the eradication of polio. Look at the progress that we made in vaccines. Look at the progress we made in antibiotics. Look at the advancements we made in human life expectancy, in our ability to treat certain diseases, in our ability to get higher crop yields from the same amount of land and thereby feed more people and ensure that droughts and famines actually lead to less and less starvation every year. Learn how to treat our water so that it doesn't make us sick and die from dysentery. Learn how to eradicate malaria in large regions where it used to be rampant. And more and more and more types of things. We can fly across the world. We can have a podcast with our friend that's in a different continent and actually be able to see their face in real time. And you can see that, holy shit, it's been a crazy amount that scientists have been able to accomplish in the last 100 years. And now, if I say, what if there was literally 1,000 times more scientific output per year? Think about that. It's like, whoa, we could eradicate a lot of diseases. We could find many opportunities to alleviate human suffering. We can find many ways to increase convenience, and we can find many ways to unlock new types of experience. We can find ways to give companions to people, like digital companions to people with Alzheimer's and dementia who are very lonely. We can figure out how to help people with depression become much happier and less contracted in suffering. And we can prevent HIV. We can cure cancer. We can figure out how to reverse aging potentially. It's an unbelievable unlocked world if we look at what it could be unleashed if we had 1,000 times more scientific progress, especially because the nature of much of this scientific progress, especially if we look at intelligence, is compounding. It actually, we get progress, and that enables to get even more progress next year, which enables us to get even more progress the year after that because we have this tool in hand that helps us make progress faster. We have this capability in hand that helps us run new experiments. We have these new building materials in hand that we can apply to solve more and more types of problems. And we have new processes in hand that we can then use across domains to then make advancements even better. If we think about the assembly line that was invented at first by Henry Ford to make more automobiles, but that's also being used to manufacture robots now. This is a meme that can spread across domains, and we will discover more and more processes, more and more useful memes that can lead to even better outcomes at a societal level. So this concept of solving more and more of our hard problems, problems of scarcity, problems of disease, problems of old age. I don't think we'll ever actually solve death, but we will solve many things before we get to there and reduce human suffering in myriad ways. One, and not to mention animal suffering. I think that it's very likely that in the next 10 years, we will be able to make significant advances in agriculture that can lead us to, that can show us a path that's totally feasible to get away from the very inhumane practices of factory farming that are so rampant, where billions and billions of conscious creatures are born and live their entire life in deep suffering. This is a problem that we really want to solve, as well as the problems of various forms of diseases that plague tons of humans. And so these opportunities before us, we can look and say, oh man, it would be great to have 1,000 times more scientists to fix that shit. I think personally, when I walk around in the forest and I'm worried about ticks getting onto my skin to give me Lyme disease or that might make me allergic to red meat, I'm really hoping that we have 1,000 times more scientists to solve that. I don't want Lyme disease. I don't want to be allergic to red meat. That's even that, and that's a very small disease and suffering risk compared to what many people around the world face from malaria, for example. And so this concept of having this great engine of scientific progress that is compounding year over year, and now it has compounded so much that it's going so vertical in what we're solving. We're in the middle of a singularity right now. We're going to make progress on energy creation, on fusion, on renewable energy. We're going to be able to reverse what we've done to the atmosphere and how much carbon we've put in it within the next 50 years. I genuinely believe. I think it's almost almost clear that we are headed in the right direction as it relates to restoring the balance of the ecosystems of the earth, which is incredibly exciting. And we should really want a lot of the scientific progress. The upside of so many of these forces is immense and exciting and needed and important. And so while we are overwhelmed with all of what this disrupts, we should also keep in mind there's a reason that we want to keep the engine of progress moving forward when it comes to technology and science and alleviating suffering of conscious beings. How do you think about this upside, this potential of what we have in hand and what we see on the road of becoming ahead?
You talk about very important points, alleviating the suffering of animals, but also of people. It's about enhancing scientific progress as well, and using robots and AI for that is obvious a very good choice. You could send out drones to make scientific observations about the behavior of whales, or to gain pictures of ecosystems, to help to steer and steward it into a better balance again, like it was before. Human
And to bring back the woolly mammoths.
have to bring back the woolly mammoth or the dire wolf or whatever, you know? It is about doing what is possible, and whatever can be done will be done in all the possible, and I hope that people will use the technologies wisely. And here we see again, okay, the factory will become the product more and more products are laid out and designed for producing more. We see it with the generative AI. We use it to generate actually output, to enhance our writing, to improve our learning if we do it well, and to improve our understanding, and to simplify complexities, to enhance the signal to noise ratio and cut to the chase, and really focusing on what is important for us right now to solve the challenge we have right now. If we do it and send out robots to gain data, and AI makes sense of the data, then we gain understanding of how the ecosystem could really be improved, and we put the button, we push the button and then put on the lever so that we really can make a positive impact. Then we will have a much better world than it was like before. Like look at what Boyan Slat, the entrepreneur, does to the ocean. He builds robots who collect the dirt and the plastics out of the oceans. He builds the interceptors to put it in front of the river outlets of the big countries who are the
Mm,
biggest polluters.
yeah.
And he says, okay, and actually the data shows that he's like doubling with his systems the amount of plastic captured every year. It only
Wow.
needs 5 more doublings to theoretically clean out all the trash in the ocean. For sure, you won't be able to reach the last 2 or 3%, whatever, because it's too much dispersed. And but here we see the progress, and we see
Yes.
the evidence that we have all the right to be optimistic about this progress and about our future. We have all the right to interpolate this optimism in the future, and we have actually the duty, in my opinion, to be optimistic, because if we would be pessimists, we wouldn't even try. But if we are optimists, we will look for the one way which is possible and try every possible alternative way which might lead to a solution, but we will try until we find the way, until it works. So we have the duty to be optimistic in that regard as well. What do you think about this kind of duty of ourselves, of our species, to be optimistic?
Optimists are a lot more helpful when it comes to moving stuff forward than pessimists. Pessimists sound smart, optimists get rich. Pessimists sound smart, optimists move our species forward. Optimists move technology forward. Optimists solve problems. Optimists create. This is the difference between if we sit back and we're just trying to have the most, I don't know, pithy, cynical worldviews on things. We won't actually help. We won't actually accomplish much. We won't actually take big risks to manifest big visions. And when we look at what's inside our control or outside our control, so if we first and we're just like from the outside, if we were a mere spectator on reality, then who cares? Be an optimist, be a pessimist. If you're just a spectator, if you're not going to help anything, might as well be whatever you want. Who cares? You'll be happier if you're an optimist and less happy if you're a pessimist. But if you're not going to be useful anyways, fine, do whatever. If you want to be useful, you've got to look at what's inside of your influence and what's outside of your influence. Pessimists oftentimes can be totally right about this thing's really scary over there. Oh, what about all the jobs that are going to get lost? Oh, what if the AI takes us over? Which, by the way, there's a real risk to all these things. There's even existential risks to certain of these things. Or the advancements in biotechnology that might cure 20 diseases could also create new diseases. And
Mm.
so you can fixate on this side or this side. It's not that pessimists have no logical grounds to stand on and they're intellectually inferior or intellectually vacuous. It could be totally intellectually valid to be a pessimist, just like it's totally intellectually valid to be an optimist with more history on your side as the optimist. Anyways, the difference between the two is what we are capable of doing within our sphere of influence. If we are contracting under the force of overwhelm, once again, totally understandable, once again, totally logically defensible to be scared, to be fearful, to be overwhelmed. And in fact, I think all of us feel overwhelmed at this point. Like I can't imagine looking at the future, looking at all this change, looking at all that could happen, looking at all the perils and dangers of some of these technologies and not feeling overwhelmed or a part of me feeling overwhelmed. And this is when it comes back to, okay, we're in reality right now. So like if I'm wishing technology wasn't there, if I'm wishing these forces weren't there, that's not going to actually make them not there. We actually have to first have the starting point of being in reality and not being able to wish things away. And then, given where I'm at, what's within my sphere of influence? What is the most effective way of being if I want to manifest good in the world for myself, for those I love, for those I care about, and for those I can influence for the better that are around me in my community, whether physically or just energetically? And so this is the point where we need to look at what is going to yield what results. Like if we have certain causes, if we have certain options available to us, what will lead to what? Being a pessimist will not lead to an expanded life. Being a pessimist will not lead to us having a better life or being able to do more good for others. And of course, it's right to point out problems, but we have so much power to solve problems. We can direct these technologies toward creating better and better things. We might as well. What better are you going to do than to try to do good, try to use what's available to make things improved? But it's hard, and it's understandable that it's hard. It's overwhelming. It's scary. As humans, we're not evolved to live in a world where there's going to be spaceships going out to different solar systems in 10 years or whatever, and there's all these crazy forces and changes. So much of our lives is becoming digital in some ways. The information ecosystem is a total cascade of chaotic flood torrent at all times. There's 100 different wars going on that we know about, and so we're feeling all this alertness and this vigilance, even if it's not going on where we're at. We're monitoring this overwhelmed flood of the information current, attention grabby, clickbaity, and attention capturing sort of stuff. And it's overwhelming. And so how do we keep our balance? It's hard to keep our balance. Even those of us who are super curious, super love change, super comfortable with going to different places and getting out of our comfort zone. This is outside of all of our comfort zone, even the ones that are wired a little weird like you and me. And so how do we keep our balance in the overwhelm? This is actually a core problem of our time. How do we keep up with this stuff? How do we accept all this is going on? How do we not want to just shove our face in the sand? It's totally understandable to have that force to just, I don't even want to look at this. I don't want to pretend that we're going to be like doing the same thing in 10 years as when I was a kid. Like, this is too much. And it's fair. It's fair. I think that at a time like this where stuff is changing so fast, we're not going to keep up with stuff. We shouldn't even try to totally keep up, or we certainly shouldn't can try to control the future because it's going to be impossible and we're just going to cause ourselves to break. What do we do? How do we navigate when times are changing this fast, when there's so much becoming, when there's so much movement, when it's compounding out of control, when it's going so fast that we have no ability to adapt at some, and certainly not in all ways? What do we do? I don't even know if I'm going to be useful in 10 years. Am I going to even this or that? What's going to change? All of this. It's too much. We have no idea. And so it's scary for a lot of us. I believe that in a time like this, in order that we can come back and be the best version of ourselves, in order that we can do all that's within our sphere of influence and have the right balance to almost be a surfer on these crazy waves that we cannot stop, that we cannot hold in place, is connecting to the infinite within us, is this ability to allow ourselves to be fluid, this ability to not hold on, to not rigidify, to not identify, but to actually say, I totally surrender to reality and I'm going to move with my full energy within it to where I feel called toward. I'm not going to be attached to what I thought was going to happen this year or this week, but I'm going to try to make myself like water or make myself like a tree that bends in the wind rather than a tree that's rigid and then snaps. This is the inner posture of being that I think is more and more essential if we're actually going to keep our eyes open in the world and do what's within our sphere of influence. We do have to just let go of this concept that we have everything figured out, let go of the concept of fixed plans, let go of our attachments to things being a certain way, because we just are going to get overwhelmed. It's not an option to be able to control the future anymore. It's off the table. And so to navigate in the world that we're really in, we've got to learn how to be flexible. We've got to learn how to be soft and supple like water. We've got to learn to flow. We've got to learn to connect with the infinite nature that we have and wake up and recognize that our consciousness has infinite capacity for things to change. Our consciousness, our awareness, our true nature doesn't need for anything to stay in place or to have security or for things to be a certain way. There's a part of ourselves that we all have that we can connect with that is exactly what we need when there's nothing is static and everything is becoming, because this part of ourselves is always already in a state of flux and becoming and dynamism. That is its native language. That is its home. And that is ultimately our home. But we've got to connect with that part of ourselves. We've got to learn to live from that part of ourselves. Otherwise, we are just going to be a rigid tree that snaps in the wind. We're just going to have no ability to hold it together if we're trying to like cling on really hard, because these forces are too strong for that. It's no 30 I guess 30 generations ago when we were farmers, that was an option. That was totally viable and you could do that your whole life. And your priors when you were born is going to be kind of similar to when you die. That's not the era we're in. And so we've got to learn to surf. How do you think about learning to surf? What is the right way to live our lives or to have an inner posture given these torrential torrents of change, dynamism, and becoming that we see all around us, driven by technology?
Well, the right way is for everybody different, probably. What I think about it is that we can cultivate a beginner's mind and be comfortable with ourselves not knowing what will happen. To not be overly identified into an ideological system of knowing what will happen and radicalize and try to push through these ideas just because we think too much about it. If we cultivate the beginner's mind and be comfortable with not knowing everything, but honor our experiences, then we also can trust our intuition about the topics. And then we recognize, okay, oh, this new technology is coming, great. But what is still important is our relationships with each other. What is still important is how we connect to the physical world, how we connect to the real human experience. So we can refocus on what we really know is true for us and for ourselves and for us being human. And we can also reach out and say, oh, I will try that out. Maybe it will help me regain some hours in my day. Maybe it will help me to deal with the stuff I don't really want to do in a better and faster way, and therefore make change happen faster and connect to the tools which give us even more power and make us recognize, oh, we can control even things that we previously didn't think we can control. Imagine being like an immigrant without the ability to speak the host country language very well, but then you have to communicate with officials and so on, and insurance and so on. Now you have the power and the tools to do it very well and very fast without even they recognizing it that you do not speak this language well. This amount of possibility to integrate much better into a new culture, for example, or new circumstances is higher if you really engage in the curiosity. But if you already think you know everything, if you think you know the state of the art of technology because you have a new iPhone or because you already done it this way, and then you are rigid, as you said, you will, as soon as higher pressure occurs, as soon as the wind is a little bit too strong, you may snap. a little bit or your whole stem will break. But the flexibility of cultivating a beginner's mind and honoring your experience so far and honoring the stuff that makes you human and honoring connections and relationships and so on. That is a good mixture that I pursue in terms of not staying behind, in terms of realizing my locus of control is also not only steady, but I can inflate it, I can enhance it. I can learn how to use new tools to increase the amount of control and power that I can exercise in my own life to make it better, to make it more enjoyable, and to help others to reach that enjoyability of one's own life as well. What do you think, Peyton, about using these tools to increase your locus of control?
There's no question that these tools are a magnification of agency all over the place. If you want to do something, if you want to solve some difficult problem, if you want to create something, technology and especially artificial intelligence right now is a whole meta skill. Wielding this can level you up in anything. If I want to get better at learning a language, if I want to get better at gardening, if I want to get better at working out and growing muscle, if I want to improve my social circle, if I want to do this or this or this or this, it can level up my capacity and my strategy and my tactics and the speed and the effectiveness and the retention of all of these things. It's incredibly empowering, and actually learning to use this to empower us in more and more dimensions of our life. This is, I think, the next step is ultimately Naval came up with this fairly useful definition of intelligence, that intelligence is the ability to get what you want. And we can see that AI is a massive boost in our ability to get what we want. If we want to be happy, if we want to feel good, if we want to acquire resources, if we want to have any of these ends that we might otherwise pursue, it will get us there faster, more reliably, and in a more energy efficient way. And so this is, I would say, the opportunity for us to pursue. And then I'm drawn to contemplate what's left. You were mentioning before the call this quote that technology, and I feel especially this artificial intelligence, is forcing us to redefine what it means to be human, redefine what makes us, redefine where is our intrinsic value. No more can I fool myself by thinking that my ability to read and write is a component of that, because I see these machines that can do it far better than I can, and I'm even pretty decent at it for a human. And so it's not that. And so what is timeless? What is our intrinsic value? What is the spark or the light or the essence of who we are and what ultimately matters in our journey? This is what it calls us to contemplate. It strips out so much of what was on the surface. My ability to do accounting or to write documents is no longer it. And so where do I retreat? And then I see that in 3 years, maybe my ability to create visual stuff or to come up with strategies, I won't even be able to retreat to that. So once all of my thinking abilities are surpassed by technology, what remains? What is truly the essence of what gives me value? What is truly the essence of what gives all of us value? And this is something that is really, I think, worthwhile contemplation. And it also brings me back to, in all of this change and all of this shifting of the scene, all of the shifting of the landscape. And I even mentioned to you before the call, there was a book about AI that I was interested in reading, and I noticed it was written 10 months ago. And I was like, that's probably obsolete by now. If it was written about AI 10 months ago, I didn't even know about Claude 4 and O3 and this and that. And it does call me to think about, well, what is truly timeless? And it does come back to what we learned from these great mystics thousands of years ago, or it comes back to what the philosophers have been thinking about and kicking around for centuries. What is current? Yes, we'll never keep up with what's current. What's current will always be new. And it might be true that a book about a technology could be obsolete less than a year after it is published. Absolutely. But some things are timeless. Some things are as true in 1,000 years for us as a human as they were 2,000 years ago. And so finding those, coming back to those, contemplating those, and I believe opening ourselves to the possibility that it is not thought, It is not logic. It is not our capacity for reason, even though these things have great value. But maybe this is not the ultimate part of what gives us value. Maybe it is not our brilliance and our problem solving and our cleverness and our writing that is ultimately where our intrinsic value is to be found. Maybe it is in our being itself. And this is what I believe is the most timeless of them all. This way, this essence that is outside of time, that is eternal. I think this is this duality. There is the more and more timely, and yet at the core, there is this ultimate thing that will never be timely because it is always timeless. It is always outside of time. And that is where I think we will find the ultimate. And I think that that is what can help us navigate and swim in these choppy waters of things accelerating so fast.
Mhm.
As you're closing, what do you think about the timeless? Where do we search for our essence when what it means to be human that we thought is surpassed in all so many dimensions of our lives, and we can see that it's coming for many of these dimensions of our outputs that it hasn't yet surpassed. What will remain?
Yeah, it's a great question. And this is also a great thing that AI forces us to do, to constantly redefine what it means for us to be human. And you pointed out the way I think as well, it always will refer back to our human experience, to the timeless wisdoms we know now for thousands of years, and that it matters to connect with the source, that it matters to build good relationships and focus on the dance and our experience of the world. Us experiencing the world is like the creative act. Our being is like the creative act, which is ultimate in itself, which requires one time it's maybe this clarity of thinking for ourselves. Because I still believe, despite artificial intelligence being everywhere, that the most important intelligence is still in between our ears. And therefore, I believe we have to cultivate thinking for ourselves even more and not give away this ability to dissect and cut through the chase. Because in the end, for now at least, LLMs are still just statistical machines which have probabilistic output and do not expel facts or display facts in their outputs. But more and more, the discrepancy between facts and probabilistic hallucinations will narrow down probably. So this dance between clarity and giving yourself fully to the moment and experiencing the flow, this is what I think right now is probably at the core of our humanity. It is always the dance. And like in music, like Alan Watts once said, it is not about hearing one crashing chord and going to a concert expecting the output to be maximum load and fully, but it is to experience the dance of the harmonies, of the rhythm, of the melodies. And the same with dancing in the physical world. It is about the enjoyment, not about reaching one particular spot in the room and being the fastest there makes you the best dancer. No, it is about the way you give yourself to the moment, the clarity with which you define your movements, and the taste you express while moving through the world, while being uniquely you and expressing your uniqueness. Because this is, in the end, this is our gift, because everybody is unique. We have to carve out what it is, what we are, what the world gifted us to us and expects us in return to give to the world. Because we are tool builders. We build these tools which now may surpass us in the future. Who knows? But at last, we give to the world something that is unique, uniquely us. Our way of seeing the world will still be relevant, and carving out our uniqueness is a human task which is timeless as well. And yeah, reading new books is always a little bit a challenge, because you never know which book is written to be timeless and which
Huh.
book is only like a little drop in the trend which will disappear in the vast sea of information. Therefore, reading old books, we can be sure that the signal to noise ratio is high, because if the books are still in print, then obviously they provided a high signal value to the people who read it and demanded to read it further and further and again and again. and even gift it away. And then we always have the uncertainty of when we approach new books, which are laid out and designed to display old principles and timeless wisdom and apply this to describe patterns which they see now versus just a comment on the current trends. So I'm always looking for the people who express their unique way in seeing patterns, but always referring them back to ancient principles and ancient wisdom so that it may be useful in the future as well, so that the filter of time will not just put them down and gulp them fully.
Beautiful thoughts, my friend. Yeah. I think that in a world of more and more and more becoming, maybe what remains at our own essence is just being. And maybe this is where we find our ultimate home once all this is said and done. Anyways, really appreciate your thoughts. This is fascinating ground. I feel like I don't understand anything more and more every year. The more I learn, the less I actually feel like I have a grip on all that's happening. And yet these things are overwhelming forces, so powerful and so important to think about, even if we can't get to the bottom of it, even if we can't figure it all out. And perhaps even because we can't figure it all out, is it even more important to feel through some of these forces and how it relates to our own life, our own understanding of ourselves, and our own journey and mission in the world. So, thank you for sharing your thoughts. This is
Thank
good
you.
food for digestion for me, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one, my friend.
See you in the next one, my friend. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Bye bye.
Likewise. Bye bye.